can't just say, I really want to be a different person. I really want to change my life. You have to then put it into action.
And the body coach Joe Wicks is once again lifting our spirits.
And that right there
He's leaning 50.
Finding the time for yourself, finding the motivation and being consistent, it's really, really hard.
How did you start to build that resilience?
And the only way you can hold on to fitness and strength and good mental health is by...
How do you even build yourself a consistently healthy lifestyle?
That's the biggest thing to think about. Am I hungry or bored or stressed? And I think when you start to tune into your real energy supply and your energy demands, you start to find it a lot easier. You know, I think the basics are so important. So the first thing you need to prioritize if you're struggling is your...
Have you ever found it difficult to maintain this kind of massive positivity of the body coach? What is up, and welcome to Working Hard, Hardly Working. Today, I am joined by Joe Wicks, a fitness coach, author, and entrepreneur who has become a household name for millions and simultaneously built himself a business empire. Joe has had a significant impact on the world of health and fitness, known to many as the body coach. He rocketed to fame with his Lean in 15 approach, bringing together 15-minute meals and HIIT workouts, and his online workouts, particularly during the pandemic, became a lifeline for millions of families, with his PE with Joe sessions gaining hundreds of thousands of views every day when schools were closed. Joe's achievements go beyond his social media success. He's published multiple best-selling cookbooks, launched a successful fitness app, and has been awarded an MBE for his services to fitness and charity. But it wasn't always a straightforward path to success. Joe's journey was shaped by the struggles he faced growing up, including a challenging family environment. His father battled addiction, and his mother suffered from OCD and an eating disorder, which placed a significant emotional strain on the family. And he talks about just how much this impacted him and the way he also sees life now. And to hear how he's taken every single opportunity from that moment to build his own success through approaches which get to the core of what motivation truly is and how to use it is so inspiring and also really actionable, is what I found from our conversation today. Before we get into this episode, please make sure to like the video and to subscribe to the channel if you want to hear more interesting conversations with interesting people. That is what we do over on this side of the internet. Thank you so much for joining me.
It's lovely to see you again. Well, I saw you didn't like that event up in the Cotswolds, so it's nice to finally be here. I said, I promise you'll be a guest, and here I am.
You did. Kept your promise. And what you did say, which leads into my next question, is that you were about to have a baby. And so there was going to need to be some, you needed to obviously take some time off for that. And my first question is always, are you more working hard or hardly working at the moment? And I can expect there's quite a lot of hard work in there, having just had your fourth child.
Yeah, it was touch and go. I could have been like in a car back to London that very night if I had to, because obviously I think Dusty, my little baby boy who was born, he was born about 4 or 5 days after that event. So,
really?
But I was only an hour and a half from home and I thought I'm going to get home. But yeah, he was born at home in a birthing pool. It was lovely bringing him to the world. But we didn't know, when he was going to arrive or what he was going to be. So yeah, that's number 4. I've got 2 boys, 2 girls now.
Good balance.
Yeah, I love that it's an even split. But yeah, it's very it's high energy. It's chaos. But I love that. I love the noise, the energy that 4 kids bring, and it's obviously never a quiet day. It's always mess, it's chaos, but I really love being a parent. So for me, it's like every time I have a kid, I just feel like my life's sort of like becoming a bit more colourful, sort of thing.
Yeah, no, I can totally imagine that, and I think that it's funny. Our Tala's CEO Morgan, she always says that even after the hardest of days, your real superpower with for her, she's like, my real superpower being a mum is that I go home and there are just these like 2 little kids that just love me and have no idea about like what's just happened at work or a difficult conversation I've had to have or whatever it might be. Like they're just living and they're just excited and they're, sometimes a nightmare, but like that's such a wonderful thing to be able to kind of depart from work and, come home to.
Yeah, they're definitely they're the funniest and the most adorable, but also the most annoying humans you're ever going to have around you, because you can't get a word in edgeways. And the funny thing about my kids is they don't really call me dad. I don't know why, but they call me Joe. They go, Joe. And my little kids call me Joe Biden to wind me up as well. Yeah, so all I ever hear is my name about 50,000 times a day. But, I really just love being there with them. I love, teach them, whether it's like learning a new sport or an instrument. I get a lot of joy of like teaching and learning. So that's kind of my favorite thing to do, is obviously like any activity where they're learning something new. And obviously trying to be a good dad and be present, but also know that my whole business and my whole success is really based on me being on my phone, right? Not much laptop stuff, it's always phone. So it's trying to get that balance of like being present and not being on it all the time, but also being able to, grow my business as well. So it's definitely something I battle with, I think, the phone and screen time a little bit.
Yeah, no, I can definitely imagine. And I definitely want to come on to that. I think that you've mentioned there how passionate you are around obviously helping your children and going to, new experiences with them, learning with them. I know a lot of your career as well has been focused on things like going to schools and PE with Joe and all of this. I'd like to start back in your early life. I feel like that really helps us to gain context on someone and where their motivations come from. And you've spoken before about how you had a pretty traumatic childhood at times. And I'd love to hear what life was like for kind of little Joe. I'd love for you to just set the scene a little bit for us.
Yeah, well, I've been really open about my kind of childhood. I did a documentary on BBC One called Facing My Childhood, where I literally went back in time and interviewed my parents and sort of understood and learned what I'd been through, because I sort of block a lot of it out. I don't remember the chaos so much, but basically my dad was, from a very young age, was suffering with addiction. So my dad was a heroin addict for all of my life, and he still battles with addiction. He's still in recovery now, but we've got a great relationship. It was very difficult living in a home with an addict like that, because although he was there, physically there, emotionally he wasn't really there. And also there'd be months where he was gone. He was using, or he was in rehab, or he was just in and out of the house. And my mum and dad's relationship would break down, and it was very unstable. And then alongside that, my mum also had her own mental health issues. She had severe anxiety, eating disorders. She was involuntarily bulimic, which is when she would eat, she'd be sick, and she lived off cigarettes and Coca-Cola, the truth, And so I had that very chaotic home, and it was very confrontational. And so for me, I realised now as an adult that the best thing that ever happened to me was going to primary school and meeting my PE teachers and having that positive role model and someone that could teach me to physically exert myself. And by that point, I connected the dots that I knew that if I moved my body and exercised, I could deal with those feelings, that sort of the fear and anxiety of walking into this house and what was going to happen. It was like I could control my own emotions. And so when I think about PE with Joe, and what really drove me, I was imagining myself as a kid in that council flat, climbing the walls, stressed out and fearful of what was going on. And so for me, it was a very big driver. And even today, I still think that a lot of my love and empathy comes from that sort of people pleaser side of me that wants to help people that aren't in a good position.
I'd love to know when you started to get this kind of interest in helping people who might have been through what you went through, or even just becoming the healthiest version of yourself when you didn't grow up in, I guess, such a classically healthy household.
Yeah, I had a very unhealthy childhood in terms of our diet. When you're on benefits, you've got a very low income, and then when you've got a father who's a drug addict, where the money's going, right? Not a lot of money was going into the household, so a lot of frozen food, ready meals. 99% ultra processed food. So I had that, which was probably affecting my behaviour, my mood, my energy. So it was. I'm always connected to that, even though my life's very different now, and I can afford different food and I live in a different house. I'll always be connected to that environment I grew up in. And so when I thought about doing, the workouts in schools, or whether I'm doing the PE with Joe stuff, it's I'm trying to think of people that need the help the most. And it is often low income families that maybe don't have, access to good food. And also maybe there's no one in that house who's a role model in terms of movement and exercise, because a lot of the population, it still blows my mind just how sedentary the world is. And so for me, it seems so natural and automatic that I exercise. For most people, they find it really difficult. So when I turn my energy from sort of personal training clients and the online fitness stuff to really working with young people, it's where I really I kind of got lit up, because I realized actually if I can inspire children, then they can go on to hopefully, if they can stay active, have a much healthier life. Because we know, if trying to get an adult into exercise is very difficult. And even secondary schools I find quite challenging. When I go to the primary schools, they're so excited to see me. They're so they're so receptive, and they just want to get involved. And so I always think if I can get the 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old kids feeling how I did, which was basically no matter what's going on at home, no matter how mummy and daddy are being around you and the stress and the chaos that might bring, you can change how you feel inside through movement. And so the power for me is really about teaching kids that movement is medicine, and it's this amazing tool that we have at our disposal. And I think that's always been such a big driving force behind what I do.
So when did you decide to become a personal trainer?
So I was working as a teaching assistant to begin with, because my path really was, I thought, right, I'm going to go to college, go to university and become a PE teacher. That was all I could think of. It was my goal. And I thought I better try it out, dip my toes in and just see what it's like really working in a school. So I did sort of my backpacking stuff, did all my traveling. When I got back, I signed up to an agency. They put me in this school in Kingston. And it was a lovely school, but it's challenging. You know, it's a really difficult school. And I saw the pressure that teachers were under. Like, it's such a challenging job. And so I did it for about a year and a half. And I said to myself, you know what? I love teachers. I think they're amazing. But I don't think personally I was cut out for it. I didn't think I had the patience. And, you know, I was too laid back. And I couldn't discipline kids. You know what I mean? Like, so in the end, I said, look, I'm going to leave that career path for now. And I'm going to try personal training, because I thought, I love movement. I love exercise. I love the human body. And I'm really into exercise. So I did the usual sort of 6-week, you know, personal training qualification. I remember I borrowed like a couple of grand off my mum to do the course. And then once I completed the course, I borrowed about 1,500 quid from my dad to sort of buy my kettlebells and boxing pads and that. And, you know, I've shared this story. I didn't have a van or a car, so I had a trailer on the back of my bike. And I really used to cycle from Surbiton over to Richmond to Old Deer Park. You know, I'd set out my boot camp, and so many times, you know, nobody came. And there's one session I did on a Wednesday morning, every Wednesday, where I knew that when I got there, pretty much no one was going to be there, or only one person would turn up. But there was a part of me that just said, you've got to just keep going, because it's on your website. There's a timetable on that website, and when you give out a flyer, it says Wednesday morning, 6 a.m. So there was never a part of me that thought, I'm going to not be there, or I'm going to skip that. And I think that kind of resilience and that belief that if I just keep showing up, it will grow. It really kept me going in those darker times when no one was showing up.
That literally breaks my heart that you would turn up and there would be no one there. That literally, like, that's the type of thing that just, like, it's so, obviously it's, in hindsight, it's pretty easy to see why you would keep going and why you would turn up and there'd be no one there, and you just go, okay, fine, it's going to work out. And as you say, like, you've put it on a website and you've put it on a flyer, and who knows, that day someone might come and bring 3 of their friends or whatever it might be. But how did you really have that in you? Because that is a lot of effort to be going from home, cycling to Richmond, setting up, no one coming, and it's a kick to the kind of ego, enthusiasm, all of the above. Like, how did you start to build that resilience? Because I don't think that would hurt anyone.
It's funny because I usually always cry when I tell that story. I find it emotional because it was a tough time. Like, you know, I had no money and I was living with my dad and I was skint and I felt like I was never going to be able to pay him back. And, you know, I found it quite emotional. I also used to get home. My brother Nicky was like getting up to go to work to London. He'd be like, you know, how many people turned up today? And it would always really upset him as well. But I just was like, it's all right, I'm good. Like, I'll just, you know, I'll go back next week. And I used to, basically, once I set up the boot camp, and I always visualised like 20 people there, so I'd have like 20 stations. And I'd in the end, I'd go, all right, well, you know what, it's set up. So I'd do a little workout. I'd pack it all up. I'd go over to Richmond train station and I would hand out my flyers, which for me was the hardest part of the whole thing. So I was so shy and introvert. Like, I'm not a super confident person. So imagine on your own outside a train station trying to give a flyer to someone who's in a rush. They really don't want to see you. Like, they think you're a nuisance. But I just don't know. It's just an internal voice. I just said to myself, if I don't do this, if I just throw in the towel and give up, I'm going to have to go and work for a gym, which is completely fine. But I always had this desire to be my own boss, to work for myself, to own my own time, to have the freedom to have days off and to work really hard on a Monday, but then have a Tuesday off, you know. And I knew that if I worked for a company, that just isn't, the flexibility isn't there. So I don't know where that voice come from. It's not my mum and dad. It's no one around me. And I just kept thinking, Joe, if you turn up next week, someone will come and it will build and it will grow. And I really applied that same mentality to my Instagram. You know, when I started sharing the Lean in 15 recipes, like, that no one was watching, no one was commenting, you know, no one was getting book deals. This is like before, like, you know, the Delicious Yellow and Joe Wicks Lean in 15 kind of thing where everyone was getting book deals. This is really early on. But I just loved sharing content, and I just kept thinking of one more person will watch, one more person will share. The same thing happened with YouTube. You know, it takes 10 years to build a channel, right? It takes so long. But I've just never had this voice that says, Joe, this isn't working, give up, go back to, you know, go back to what you're doing. And even in the early days, my friends, like friends and family, not family, but friends would be on my Instagram commenting, go, oh, what are these silly videos? You're winding me up. You're so annoying. Stop shouting at the food in the pan and get back to your boot camps. But I just didn't listen to those negative voices and just sort of thought, you know what, I'm having fun. And look where it got me. Look what it built, you know, over all those years.
Yeah, and I think that is a really valuable lesson for everyone. And I think that a lot of people that I've had on this podcast have said that there was almost something that just kept them going, even when all the data would say this isn't working. And I think that that's something that very much ties a lot of successful people together. And I think that when you start to internalize that, you start to realize how much it is just important to understand it's not going to be everything, and quitting can be really valuable at points, and knowing when something is done and it's time to move on is one of the best strengths that you can possibly have. But also really being able to understand that sometimes things do take longer. Just because it's taking time doesn't mean it's not happening. All of these things I think is really valuable. When did it start to pick up at the boot camps?
It took a while. The first boot camp was in Richmond, and I remember like thinking I had like maybe 2 people on direct debit, so I was getting like 90 quid a month, and I was like, imagine when I get 4, it'd be like 180 whatever. And it just took a long time. It probably took about a year and a half for it to become like a business where I was probably earning like £1,500 a month, and I was like, that's pretty good. And I had another boot camp in Surbiton, which was good. So I had a lovely little business. I was really happy. Like, don't ever think that I had this vision of becoming this famous body coach and DVDs and book deals. I literally was so happy with my life. I lived in a 1-bedroom flat. I had 2 boot camps. I was training personal training clients as well around that. So I had a lovely lifestyle. But my vision was basically to have like maybe 4 or 5 boot camps and have other trainers working. That was as big as my mind could dream. But I really found it hard finding other trainers who could come on, who were willing to do the 6 a.m.s and the 7 p.m.s and actually graft for it, because it's really hard. It's a hard industry. And also they wanted to do the summer months but didn't want to do the winter months. So that vision of my boot camp growing didn't really ever happen. And so alongside that, obviously Instagram opened up sort of video in 2013, 2014. And I started sharing those first original Lean in 15 videos, which a lot of people thought it was like 15 because it was 2015, but it was actually a 15-minute meal, and it was a 15-second video because you could only share 15-second videos. So the hashtag was, and that right there is Lean in 15. And again, that was just a silly idea, me on an iPhone in a 1-bedroom flat whilst personal training. And the drive and the motivation was in the fact that I shared the video and someone would go out and buy those ingredients and an hour later was cooking it and sharing that back to me. And so that was where the buzz came and the sort of dopamine hit. So again, every day, Monday to Friday, I'd post 5 recipes, 2 a day sometimes. And that opportunity, then suddenly I got a publisher ring up and say, hey, would you love to do a cookbook with us? And I was a bit like, I'm not a chef. I'm not really a trained cook. I'm not a great writer, but I'll have a go. So signed a book deal. And I'm so glad I did, because that book deal, that first book, the red one, the Lean 15 book, is the 2nd best-selling cookbook of all time after Jamie Oliver. And so imagine if I didn't have the confidence to try and I said, oh, you know what, I'm okay. I never would have changed lives. I got millions of families cooking because of that. So again, it wasn't strategic. I'm not that smart. I don't think that far ahead. And even with PE with Joe, I had no idea it was going to be so successful. But the drive to do it was there, and the technology was there. And I just combined my energy and love for movement, had a bit of fun, went live, and then, before you know it, the whole of the UK are doing my videos.
I know, it really, really is incredible. And I think that especially at that time on Instagram as well, we can't forget that it wasn't the done thing to be posting anything other than just like your daily life. It wasn't, we look back now and we're, talking about how important that's always been in a platform, like an amazing platform that you can blow up on and all of that. But that really wasn't how anyone was seeing it at the time, because you weren't seeing how people could do that, because no one was getting book deals from something like Instagram. How long did it take to actually, from I guess your posting your first recipe to getting that call for that book deal? Because I can imagine that was a crazy call to receive.
I think it took probably about a year and a half into Instagram, into my journey, because it was growing quite steadily. Like back in the day, it was easy to grow. There was less users, there was not many people doing it, and obviously my wacky videos where I was screaming, in with a Lucy bee, rice in the mic, it was crazy. And I struggled to watch them back. I would cringe a little bit, but it caught people's attention, So I think a year and a half went past. Maybe I had about 50,000 followers at the time. And Pam McMillan reached out and was like, do you want to do a book? And I just said, I'll come and have a meeting. And then they sort of convinced me to do it. And I'm so glad, because, I took my sort of, we haven't really mentioned that also, that the online sort of business, the PDF fitness business, and turn it into cookbooks, which people could afford, because, the 90-day plan was a bit more expensive and the books were only, £8-9 quid each. So it made it more accessible. So I love that I've had this ability to sort of connect with all of my free content, whether it's recipes and YouTube videos. And then obviously there's a business side of it we can talk about, because I still to this day can't believe the success I've had and the longevity that I've had, because usually like a musician, you have a big album, you have a big moment, and it's really hard to sustain that like long term. And same with fitness, you've seen it before, like amazing influencers popping off, thousands of followers, millions of dollars from online plans, and suddenly they kind of fade away. And I do wonder, and I question, like, how have I stayed relevant? How have I managed to connect with 2-year-old kids doing my PE with Joe and Hey Dougie workouts to, I go to care homes and exercise with, senior citizens, like a 90-year-old man that does my workouts every day on YouTube. And I think when I do think about why, I think it's because I just love connecting, and I'm so driven by the purpose of like just get people moving and don't get distracted by everything else. And I think that's why I've managed to, the message has always been the same with me, I think, and I've managed to maintain attention and maintain people's attention, because I'm inspiring them still.
Yeah, and it strikes me as well that like the way you talk about things is that you want to change lives, and you want people's lives to be healthier, you want them to move more, you want them to eat better, all of these different things. What do you think is the secret to maintaining motivation for longer periods of time when people might have just come into your work based on something like a 90-day plan or only cooking a 15-minute meal or whatever it might be?
Well, my North Star and one of the, sort of my mission statements, I want exercise to be fun and accessible to everybody. So that does come from YouTube, through Instagram stories, through my recipes, and obviously books, and obviously the fitness app, which has been sort of a recent thing. But again, I'm just trying to promote this message of like, it doesn't have to be this overwhelming, stressful, like unhappy process. Like you can actually enjoy the journey of looking after yourself by doing like small daily wins, little daily choices. It could be around, and I do talk a lot about sleep, movement and nutrition, because I think those three things are so important. And you don't always get everything right. Like there's going to be nights you're up till 1 a.m. because you're stressed out, or you've had a takeaway and you've had a bit of a binge because you've had a stressful day, and we turn to food and we're emotional. And there's other days where you'll do no exercise, and that's fine. I think it's about, you got to ride those waves of emotion and obviously motivation. But I think the reason people connect with me on a deeper level is because I'm very honest, and like, if I'm stressed and the kids have had me up all night and I'm up having, 4 slices of marmalade and toast and chocolate all day and fizzy drinks because I'm really knackered, like, I think the more I share the realities of what it's really like, the more people connect. And so I'm not perfect. I have days where I'm really unhealthy, and like if I'm on these tours, I'm on the road, like I'm living at petrol stations and eating out every night in pubs and stuff. So if I'm really bloated and I've got a big pot belly on me, I share it, and next thing you know, it's a Daily Mail article, because people like that the truth of like life. It's never that easy. Like, and I did a post this morning actually, like a bit of a rant after my workout, saying I want to be honest with you, like not many people say this in the fitness industry, but being in shape is really hard. Like finding the time for yourself, finding the motivation and being consistent, it's really, really hard. Like it's never going to be easy. But today, just focus on what you can do today, and that little mindset shift, I think, is really helping people at the moment. Yeah. Because a lot of times it feels so overwhelming, doesn't it? Especially if it's like a weight loss goal or a mental health goal. You think I'm never going to reach that, and so you're almost paralyzed, sort of thing, by the process. But if you just control what you can today, you'll feel better, and it will lead to a positive day.
How do you even start to build yourself a consistently healthy lifestyle? Like every day, doing what you need to do when actually your background is so different from that?
I think there's ways of just seeing it in a breaking it down into smaller kind of bite-sized chunks is really powerful, especially for like motivation, because sometimes if you don't achieve everything you put in your diary, or it doesn't go to plan, you sort of think, what's the point? And you lose motivation, or you don't get results like you want, and suddenly like you just disconnect from exercise and food. But I think the basics are so important. So the first thing you need to prioritize if you're struggling is your sleep, because nothing is easy when you're exhausted. Like I've got these 4 kids that wake me up every night, and I'm finding it really hard to exercise. Like really, really got to dig a bit deeper. But the sleep's so important, because when you're well rested, you have much better willpower around food. You've got more energy to exercise. You can make better choices. And so I think the sleep's really the first important thing to focus on. And we are a sleep-deprived population, I think, because of devices, social media, entertainment, stress from work, and children as well thrown into the mix. When you have kids, it becomes a lot harder. So if you just focus on sleep, so think about a routine. Can you, and I'm bad for this because sometimes I'll take my phone into the bedroom and it will keep me up and I'm on it till 2 a.m. So for me, I've got to leave the phone in another room, leave it downstairs, get a Lumia alarm clock that wakes you up like a bird's tweeting in the sunrise, and that's beautiful to wake you up. And then that gives you a chance to get a better night's sleep. Second thing is, I know this is so boring and cliche and old school, but meal prepping, right? If you're not preparing your own food and cooking your own food, who is? Where's it coming from? It's usually processed. It's from, a warehouse or a factory or a restaurant. And it's really hard to stay on track with your health and fitness goals if you're relying solely on food out on the go. So, make a big bolognese or a big curry or, a big overnight oats. Like these little things, I know it seems like, well, does that really make a difference? But it totally does. It really makes a difference. And the third thing is movement, and I think there's this pressure to like, you've got to lift weights, you've got to be really strong, you've got to be doing HIIT. If you're not, what are you doing? What's the point? Like, that's not true. Like, I see all movement as as medicine. I see all movement as exercise. And I see, for me, sometimes it's literally like playing hide and seek in my house with my kids or going in the garden and running around, or going for a little, and I told you this morning, I'm one of those groovy dads that came to this podcast on a micro scooter. And so that's movement. So I think it's about finding the time, finding something you love, and just, you're not going to get all those 3 things right every day. You're just not. And it's just focusing on the little things. Can you do one of those things today or 2 of those things? And when you do, you start to get momentum. You build this sort of like psychological resilience to think that actually I can eat when I'm hungry, not just when I'm bored and stressed. I can find time to exercise because I know I'll be happier and I'll be a better parent. I'll be more patient, and I can have a bedtime routine that allows me to feel good the next day. And so that's it. They're the 3 kind of pillars, I think. And everything else falls into place when those things are working out.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And I think a lot of that in terms of breaking it down into smaller bits and not necessarily just seeing it as, needing to get a workout in or all of these different things is so incredibly helpful. Yesterday, I was running around all day and I was so back to back, and I was at a shoot, and then the first thing I saw on the side was some sweets. And I was like, I need something because I'm feeling very like, yeah, I'm kind of hungry, but I'm stressed and like all of this. And I so nearly grabbed them. And it's not that that's bad or should be demonized, but I just know, and obviously have trained myself for a long time to know that actually if I go for that, I'm going to feel the exact same in about half an hour and probably even worse. And just really, it's taken me a very long time to really draw the lines between actually that's not that easy, and everything convenient generally is a little bit worse for us. Giving yourself the grace to make those mistakes sometimes, but also understanding that, as you say, it really is just about every single day. Like, how can you make the best decisions each day rather than thinking, oh, I'm going to do this big new thing for the next 6 months, but actually just today, what am I going to do?
Do you know what's really helped me with that? Because I also have a really sweet tooth, and I've sort of told myself this story that I need something sweet after every meal. I can't eat chocolate in moderation. I have to have pudding every day. Like when I go to the pub, I've told myself this story, and it's a narrative, and I genuinely convinced, I'm addicted to sugar, and of course, like, it is very addictive. But I've challenged that and reprogrammed myself, because now I'm starting to think, right, I don't need to eat a whole bar of chocolate. I don't need to have a sticky toffee pudding every time I go to the pub. I can just have the roast dinner and a soda water and lime. I don't need to have the roast, the sticky toffee pudding, and 3 pints of Coke, which is normally what I do. I just go all in, do you know what I mean? And so that for me really affects my my mood, my energy. I get really bloated, I don't feel good. So it's just having those little wins. It's like going into certain situations that you'd normally go, oh, well, it's dinner time, so therefore I must have pudding. And even though for me, sometimes it's something you'd consider healthy, but I might have a big bowl of yogurt with granola, loads of honey and berries. It's still sugar. I'm still relying on that sweetness. And so, yeah, it's just like some nights out of the week I'm having pudding. Some nights I'm having 3 slices of marmalade and toast for pudding. Other times I'm not. And so it's just like knowing that you can have days where you're not always repeating the same things. And those little choices, those little wins where you're not having a chocolate bar every single lunch break, it does make a difference. It adds up.
I think that's so true in all walks of life as well. I think we tell ourselves things about ourselves that we then make a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. Like we tell ourselves, oh, well, I'm like this, or I don't wake up early, or I'm always really bad and I go to bed super late, but it's kind of just who I am. Like it makes us feel more comfortable to categorize ourselves and therefore to replicate the patterns that we set for ourselves. How would you advise someone who's in that kind of cycle to start breaking out of just telling themselves they're like something and just keeping on acting in the same way when actually they know they need to change something? The
saddest thing for me is when I hear of people like, spend their whole life on diets, and sort of like always trying things that are just unsustainable. And obviously there's going to be a sense of failure if it doesn't work, because it's just not realistic. So you have to start thinking about things that you can live a sustainable way. So you shouldn't completely remove the things you love from your life. It's just about reducing them. It's like reducing the portion sizes. It's okay to skip lunch. Just because it hits 12 o'clock doesn't mean you have to eat lunch. We've been convinced by marketing and products that we need to snack all through the day and it's lunchtime, you should eat now. But it's okay to just have a little rest, have a little breather and think, am I hungry or bored or stressed, or am I just told I need to eat this now because it's a certain time of the day? And I think when you start to feel those hunger hormones and energy, like to tune into your real energy supply and your energy demands, you start to find it a lot easier. And do you know what I mean? So it's a case of like just tapping into your body a little bit more and not just like listening to the marketing signals that we're bombarded with. And that for me has been a big change, because I usually eat 3 or 4 times a day, all day long, and I like to feel stuffed. And so I'm trying to learn to sort of actually just eat a bit slower, have slightly smaller portions, see how you feel. And most of the time I realize I don't need to eat as much as I think usually need to eat. And I'm feeling much better, like in terms of my gut health, my digestion. But yeah, it's a daily challenge, right? Because we're bombarded with messaging, and every single touch point for the day is the foods you love, like the tempting foods that we love, the sugary foods. And so I'm more about like, rather than have a strict sort of like yes or no, it's more like a guideline I follow. And some days I might have a sugar-free day, other days I'm having loads of sugar, and that's fine.
And what about someone who hasn't grown up exercising a lot and their family's never prioritized it, and maybe they didn't love it at school, or they didn't have the inspiring PE teachers you had, or I know a lot of women, young women and girls in school find it very, very hard to get into PE because it's not prioritized, or they don't have the appropriate period products, or whatever it might be. How would you recommend they start to integrate that kind of daily movement that you talk about into their routine?
Well, the great thing about, this current age we live in is that you've got this ability to like watch content online from your home. And obviously I've got this amazing YouTube channel, but it's mainly obviously HIIT workouts and strength training. And you might not like that, but there might be an amazing, yoga teacher or Pilates teacher. You can find anything and do it in the comfort of your own home. And I think it's a good place to start, because if you have body image issues, or you're not confident and you feel like, oh, I don't want to walk into a busy gym, that's okay. So I think it's about maybe start with home workouts, and then you could progress potentially to signing up to like a 5K run, or join a local run club. I think community is a really important aspect. And I've just recently started training for a triathlon. I'm doing it this Sunday coming. It's only a tiny little sprint triathlon, but I go down to this open water lake and they're so friendly. It's like this little community, and, just having like people to meet who are on the same sort of mission, the same path, is really wonderful. So I think social can have a big part of it, like a community. I also think being accountable as well, like trying to share your goals as well, like talk about it, share it with your friends and family, share it on social media, because when you put out to the world like, oh, I'm going to run a 5K in 6 months time, or I'm going to sign up to a high rocks or something, like it's having something in the diary is really motivating. And also think about things that aren't necessarily sport and competitive. It could be something fun like bouldering, or going, getting into like water sports. It could be like kayaking or wakeboard. There's so many activities you can try that you might really love, and suddenly a hobby can become your exercise and become the thing you do regularly. But I do think there's this pressure now for everyone to be lifting heavy weights and high intensity sweat sessions, and if you're not, doing that, you're not really fit. But I just think fitness comes in all different shapes and sizes. And so keep trying things, keep learning, learn a new skill and try something different. I don't have a really like regimented regime. Like sometimes I'll go for a run. Today I had a little go on my Peloton this morning, but like I just see how I feel, whatever you're in the mood for. And I think the biggest moment for me, and the biggest transition and thing that's really kept me going, like as I get a bit older, the 4 kids and stuff, is when you shift your mindset and goals from being just body image to being more about the mental health benefits of exercise. Like really forget about the fat loss and the inches. And I know it's hard because we're so driven by our image, and even me, like I say that, but I still want to be lean, right? And I still want to be a little bit lean and a little bit stronger. But when you actually think about all the other benefits that exercise brings for you, and for me it's like mood and energy, patience with my kids, I'm kinder to be around, I'm more ambitious, I feel like the world's not so bad, I feel like I can be more positive and optimistic. So when you target and focus on all those things, or focus on getting stronger, physically stronger, the fat loss and the weight loss will come over time. But I think if you focus solely on that, it's just not a big enough motivator, So really think about that as you plan your week, like what you're trying to achieve, how do you want to feel every day? And I think that's going to pull you back to exercise and nutrition way more than just the weight and the scales or an image that you've seen in the photo. Do you know what I mean? I think it's really important to do that. Yeah,
no, I completely agree. And what about for someone who's listening, who's saying, okay, well, I try and get movement in, but also I have kids and I'm finding it exhausting, and actually every spare second I get, I just want to take a nap. Like I don't want to go out and do a run or do a walk or do a 30-minute YouTube workout or whatever it might be. What would you say to someone in terms of how they should be kind of building a day-to-day that they feel happy with in terms of things like movement, sleep and nutrition, whilst understanding that it's also really fucking hard a lot of the time?
Well, I'm going through that right now. So my little boy Dusty was born 11 weeks ago. I've also got a 2-year-old girl called Lenny, who also wakes up in the night for a cuddle or a bit of milk, not milk, but like she needs a bottle of water and stuff. So I'm right in the middle of it right now. So I can truly relate to those parents that are tired. And I woke up this morning again, you wake up when you've been woken up multiple times by a child and you're quite resentful, you're a bit angry about it because why is this little person woke me up? But you have to be there for them, and it's just life, it's part of being a parent. And so for me, the first thought I think about is just get up, no matter how heavy my body feels or how stressed I'm feeling. I know that when I go and do the exercise, I'm going to feel better afterwards. I'm going to feel more energized. And I I just feel like a much kinder human being. So when I come downstairs to see the kids, I'm really happy to see them. I'm like, dinner, breakfast time. And, you know, if I woke up and just carried that resentment and that stress in my body, I wouldn't be the same person I am. And I would be more snappy and more intolerant and stuff. So I think that's the biggest thing to think about. And it doesn't have to be a really intense session. Sometimes I'll just go up to the gym and have a stretch, and I'll lift a few weights really like sluggishly for 20 minutes, but I feel like I've done something. So I think, you know, be kind to yourself and understand if you're truly physically exhausted, I think take the nap, like always take the nap. But if you're just a bit tired, a bit grumpy and a bit grouchy and you've had like broken sleep, I think it's okay to push through that and exercise, because the benefits, like the actual energy it gives you. I think a lot of people are waiting for time and energy, but actually if you want energy and motivation and time, you've just got to squeeze in that little bit of exercise. And it's always at the end of it, isn't it? Like it comes. So yeah, it's really hard when you're a new parent, and especially if you feel like guilty that you've left them, or guilty that, you know, you're not with them every single second. But I think it's an investment. You being kind to yourself means you're a better parent, and it really impacts my parenting.
Yeah, no, I think that's so true. And I actually saw a video, I think it was yesterday, on Instagram. And do you know Steph Claire Smith in Australia? She was like one of the OG kind of fitness type people. And she'd posted a video saying, you know, it was my day with my son and I really needed to go to the gym. So I took him to the gym and all of this. And someone had left a comment being like, if it's your day with your son, why the hell are you going to the gym? Like, spend some time with your son. She did this video kind of being like, I'm a better parent when I prioritize myself at some point during the day. Like, I needed some movement. I took him to the gym. I had a great time. He had a great time. Like, kids want to see what you're doing. Kids want to, like, are influenced by these things, and it is important for them as well. And I think we have so much time to shame parents in terms of how they spend their time in order to enrich their kids' lives. And I think that, you know, there's only so much I can say on it because I'm not a parent and I won't even understand that. But I also think that we have so much time to shame parents for that type of thing, when actually the best thing you can do for your kids surely is showing them you as the best parent you can be. And you as the best parent you can be is a parent who's prioritized themselves, who's given themselves their own time, who said, do you know what, I do need half an hour, or I do need you, like, why don't you sit on the sofa and kind of do this while I'm going to follow this workout, or whatever it might be. You know, you've talked about how important your childhood was in shaping you. And I think the importance of showing children what a healthy life looks like and what a happy parent looks like based on having given yourself your own time, I think is so incredibly important.
I 100% agree with that. And I really am so passionate about showing that and being a positive role model to other parents, because, you know, it is stressful being a parent. I mean, you imagine I've got 4 kids under 6 years old. Like, they're the most annoying human beings in the world, but they're so amazing as well. And so it's like, you've got to find that time for yourself, because if you don't, you're just constantly a bit stressed, a bit anxious, you're a bit kind of frustrated about the world. And so I think finding that time, and I'm the same with Rosie. I'm like, I can see she's had a tough night, or she's stressed. I say, Rosie, like, I'll take the kids out, go and have a half an hour workout. And, you know, when she does, she always feels better, and we just feel a bit calmer as parents. But we are the greatest role models to our children. So, like, what role model do you want to be? And I really, really prioritize, you know, for me personally, I love getting my kids in the kitchen. I know it's messy and they drive me mad, but getting them to cook and learn to enjoy food is really important to me. The second thing is movement. Like, it's not like dad goes to the gym, mum goes to the gym, and the kids never see it. I actually I'm really blessed that I've got a little home gym, so they come up to the gym. And yesterday, this is funny, I did 10 pull-ups. My little boy says, I want to do 11, and he's only 4 and he'd done 11 pull-ups, like little baby half reps. They weren't full reps, and I cheered him on, and I was celebrating, and I just celebrate everything, like, because if he ever asks me, like, I'm not always in the mood, I just want to be on my own sometimes, but if he ever says, Daddy, can I work out with you? I always say yes, because I don't want to kill his motivation. And sometimes I want to go for a fast run around the block, and he'll say, oh, Daddy, can I come? And I'm like, it's going to be really slow. And I say, well, can you ride your bike? And like, then he'll like be my pacer on his bike. So it's trying to incorporate them into your world and let them see you exercise, because they absorb it. And although they might not be really sporty and like, you know, competitive, they're going to just learn that when mummy exercises or daddy does a bit of movement, he's really happy, he's nicer, he's kinder, he doesn't shout and stuff. And these are little signals that they're picking up from. So yeah, it is obviously much harder. It's nicer just to say, right, I want to go to the gym for an hour and there's no kids and it's like your time. But trying to be a role model, and every now and again just doing something as a family, I think is really, really powerful. And obviously my kids see it every day because of PE with Joe, and obviously me filming for the app and for the YouTube channel. So it is something that's just so second nature to them. But they're not like kids that wake up going, oh, I want to go for a run, Daddy, I want to go do parkrun. Like, they're not. So I have to be the one that gets them out of the house. I have to be the energy that gets us all moving. And so I am the cheerleader. I do round them up and we get out the house and then we come home and watch an hour of like Disney Plus and we chill. Do you know what I mean? So it's not all go, 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 but someone in the house has got to be getting their trainers on, getting their jackets on and getting out. And it's obviously much harder coming into the winter months, it's going to be much colder, but you've got to be the positive role model in that family and lift the energy of the whole family and the whole household.
Yeah. And I guess so much of your work is around positivity, and you talk about there being the like cheerleader in the house, and I can imagine that some days that's really hard. Have you ever found it difficult to maintain this kind of massive positivity of the body coach?
For me, it just comes quite naturally because I just feel like I want to be a positive energy in the world. So I'm not like, it's not too forced. And I'm so lucky that my community online is very positive, and I know you've struggled as well in the past, and I have had some negative press and comments and stuff, and I'm lucky it's a small percentage, because if it was every day, I'd really struggle to be on social media. But I feel like I've nurtured, a nice environment where people want to be inspired, they want to be motivated. And so every day I just think about that. I think about like, can I share a motivational story or a nice recipe or a little workout that's going to nudge someone in the right direction? But, there are days when I'm flat and I'm a bit down, but I think because of my habits and my sort of consistency with my food and exercise, I do feel a little bit more perky, a little bit more like, a bit more optimistic and happy about things. If I stuck myself into the mainstream media and I didn't exercise and I just ate chocolate every day, I'd find it really hard being the body coach. So I think it's something I'm passionate about, and I want to be a positive role model for families. I want to be a positive role model for kids and, for everybody really. So I talk a lot about mental health, all the things I'm passionate about, but it's not forced. It's never like I'm trying, I'm not speaking for a filter. I'm not like pretending that I'm just trying to like share the realities of what my life is like. And some people tune in, some people unfollow. And, I just think it's about inspiring and giving people like the belief that they can have a better life themselves and make some small changes.
And what about those days where you're kind of really lacking positivity, or it's really hard, or you've been through something really tough, or the business isn't going how you want it to go? How do you, I guess, pick yourself up and show up how you need to show up on those days?
It's always exercise. My first port of call, because I've tried turning to junk food, and I feel good for a minute, but then I don't. And then I've tried like watching those TV and distracting myself with my phone and numbing my sort of thoughts and feelings through social media. But really, the biggest thing to shift my mindset more than anything is exercise. And I always think the harder I push to, like if I lift a really heavy set of weights or do a proper hard strength session, or I go and like smash a HIIT workout, the benefits in my mind are so powerful. It clears my head so much. And a lot of people struggle to believe that. They're like, well, I don't feel that. But maybe if you're really out of shape and you haven't quite got those endorphins yet, you've got to push through a little bit more, like do a couple more weeks of it. So I think for me, my number one thing to turn to is exercise. And then the second thing is probably just talking, like picking up the phone, ringing my brother or speaking to my mum or, my wife, and communicating about how I'm feeling. And then once you talk, I think there's a lot of power in that, because you release the fear or the emotion and you actually feel like you're not alone, and you can talk through it. And I think that's really important. I think a lot of people, we bottle it all up. We live in our own little minds and we sort of think we just don't need to share it and give it to someone else. But actually, when you share that message with someone, they and people around you that care about you want to help you. So I think communication is really key, especially for young men. We're not talking enough.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think that, a problem shared is very much a problem halved. I'd love to know what the proudest moment of your whole career has been.
Nothing will ever top, what I've done in lockdown, I think. Even if I have amazing business success or some next project that's amazing, nothing will, the impact that had, it was only when I finished it, I knew how much it meant to people. And 9 times out of 10, when someone comes to meet me at these big runs I do, or one of my events, or anyone in the street, it's thank you so much for what you did in lockdown. You helped me get through a difficult time. You helped my kids who were struggling. And so it will always be like my career highlight and the moment that I'm so proud of, because I was truly like living my purpose, if you like. I was getting kids moving. I was getting millions of people moving every day. And I know that for that 30 minutes, they felt good. They felt happier, and they didn't think about COVID and lockdown and not being at school. And yeah, I think it will always be the thing I look back at and think, what a moment for me to actually help people through. And it will never happen again. It will never happen in that way again. Even if we went into COVID lockdown tomorrow, no one would do it like that. It would never be the same numbers, the same amount of people. So it was a once in a lifetime moment where I really helped people through such a difficult time.
And how do you deal with feeling like you've had something like that will never happen again, that you loved so much? Like, I think that it's quite it's easy to gloss over the fact that sometimes having something that you feel like was a real peak that will never come back is actually quite hard at points. Like, do you ever feel sad that that won't come back? Obviously not the lockdown and stuff, but in terms of, you know, what you did there and what you were able to make happen.
Yeah, they talk about it like it's like the gold medal syndrome, that way you win a gold medal and you come home and it's like, oh, what now? You lose motivation. And I definitely felt a bit flat after it happened because I was so exhausted. I was like, oh no, you know, am I still valuable? Am I still helping people? And although even today it's not on the scale of that was tens of millions of people a week. I'm still getting, you know, millions of people on my YouTube channel every month, and my app's doing really well, and I'm so proud of that. So I don't really think about the bigger number. I just think about one person at a time. So although, yeah, I'm not reaching millions, I'm still talking to a lot of people, and yeah, I think it's just about focusing on that really. And the DMs, I get, you wouldn't believe, like I still spend every day getting into my DMs. The only person that has access to my Instagram is my brother Nicky, but he might like post, you know, an advert for the app, or he might post a video, a recipe, but he's not. It's me. When you get a message back on Instagram, it's for me. So I'm so in touch with my community still. I'm so connected to the mission and the DMs I read, you know, the impact that I have. And so it's very emotional for me. Like I need to be in tune with that, because otherwise it's just views and subscribers and revenue and data. It's like, it's not real. So when I do these mad runs, I went to Brighton at the weekend and there was, you know, 2,000 people turned up, and I don't leave until everyone gets a selfie. And the reason I do that is because I want to meet them, I want to have a hug, and I want to hear like, why are you here? And it's always to do with like, you know, the impact that my content's putting out in the world has had. So, you know, I just have so much energy for it still. And I think I'll know the day I know that I'm not enjoying it, or it's forced, or I'm not truly being authentic. I think I'll know. Do you know what I mean? But I still really love it. And even though I'm 39 this month, I'm still connecting with people, and I love that.
Yeah. And I think that what you just said there as well about, do you know what? I think about it one person at a time. That is the importance of having like a North Star and a mission and something you want to do. I think, you know, you've talked about how much you want to change people's lives and you want to help get them moving and all of that. And I think that it is so easy, no matter what work you're in, to constantly think about the height of things, or the best moment here, or the time we made most money, or the time, you know, I got promoted, or any of these things. And it's really, really easy to constantly feel like you're on a down then after those moments, or you're constantly struggling with all of these things, which may well be true. But when you have something that ties you back to like, either it's the type of person you want to become, or the type of business you want to build, or the type of person you want to be at work, as long as you're ticking that off, everything's good. Like, it doesn't matter if it's a harder month, it doesn't matter if the business isn't doing great, like whatever it might be. Of course that's going to be stressful, but that is the importance of having a mission that you're kind of tied back to, no matter how big or small that is. I feel like that can really help when times aren't so good.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I've obviously had this career moment where like I had, you know, PE with Joe was a big moment. Obviously, like my first cookbook was amazing, and then from that point, the numbers went down. But it doesn't affect me because I still know that I'm having an impact, and I'm not selling millions of books, but I still know that there's still loads of bookshelves in the UK where one night a week someone's putting out a book and they're cooking a healthy recipe. And so I'm very much that plus one kind of thing of like, today it's about one person. I think about that person. You know, who are they? Well, they're probably on a low income family. They're probably stressed. They probably got a lot of negative emotion. They're probably feeling quite down. And I just think about that person, and that's the purpose for me. That's the mission. And I believe as long as I keep putting content out like that, that's helping, I'll still be connecting with people. I'll still be, you know, helping. And I think if you don't get distracted by the other things, which, you know, when you have a big following, there's loads of opportunities. I've been really good at saying no to things. And that's why my Instagram following still grows. That's why my channel and my business is growing. I think the minute you're just seen to be doing loads of different stuff and it's just about, you know, essentially monetizing attention, I think it doesn't work. It does in the short term, and you've seen loads of people do great, but where are they now? You know, because, you know, I think longevity in this business, in any business, is about connection with people and adding value to their lives, which is more than just like promoting a product to them, you know?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And what is the best piece of advice that you've ever received?
This is from my dad. So my dad said this to me once, and it's been such a, like, it was like a light bulb. I was like a lightning bolt in my mind. And he's never said anything so kind of inspiring before. But he said to me, Joe, if you're going to miss the bus, miss it running. And I sat there for a minute. I was like, what does that mean? And I realized what it means is, like, you know, even if you know you're not going to reach a goal, you've got to at least try. You know, you've got to try and catch the bus, because if you don't, you're never going to know. But if you actually, like, if you ran and put in the effort, maybe you'll catch the bus. And I think that mentality has been sort of in my DNA since I suppose since as a teenager. I've always just tried my hardest, had a go, and things have worked out well. But if I hadn't and I'd just given up and I didn't even bother trying to run to the bus, you're never going to catch the opportunity.
Yeah, that's such
simple,
a good
isn't it?
piece of advice.
Simple, but it's impactful to me.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's so easy to, we were talking about categorizing yourself and being like, I'm this type of person, I'm this type of person, so I'll never stick to that, or I'll never do that. Maybe you made it work for 2 days this week, and that's much better than 0 just because you told yourself you weren't going to. And I feel like that kind of, if you're going to miss it running, fits in so well with that, because it's just like, okay, we'll try. Like, what's
100%.
the worst that could happen?
And all the little choices, I say this a lot, the insignificant choices that mean nothing, they really add up. Like I said, whether it's going out, not having 2 glasses of wine at dinner, just having a nice meal, like all these little kind of decisions, micro choices, micro decisions you make, it starts to reflect on your body, on your energy, on your mental health. It's not just this like all or nothing thing. It doesn't have to be so extreme. I think when it is extreme and you go extreme keto, extremely low calorie diet, or you just do meal replacements, like you might get results for a week or 2, but it's not long term. Same with the pills, injections, potions. There's no quick fix. You really have to work at it. And when you achieve what you want, do you know what the sad thing is? You've got to keep on going, because you just lose it straight away. You've got to earn it, and you've got to hold on to it. And the only way you can hold on to fitness and strength and good mental health is by having a manageability and a consistency to your life. And that's why very few people in this world manage to do it, because it's really hard. But that's not to say you can't. You just have to put in little things in place and keep challenging those narratives, those decisions, those thoughts in your mind that tell you you're a failure, you've always looked this way, you're never going to look any different, you're weak, you can't do push-ups, I'm never going to do a pull-up. Everyone can learn to do a pull-up. It just takes time, and anyone can learn to run 5K. It just takes time and it takes effort. It's motivation in action, right? You've got to be like motivated, but also putting into action. You can't just say, I really want to be a different person, I really want to change my life, I really don't like the job I've got, or the relationship I'm in, or my mental health, I don't want to be this person. But you have to then put it into action, because even if someone's trying to encourage you, it doesn't matter what they say, you have to want to intrinsically want to do it for yourself. And one final thought I like to end on is that happiness is an inside job. We can look at external things, we can buy ourselves nice cars and clothes and watches, but it's all inside, man. It's literally like you've got to look after yourself internally. And that's going to come through sleep, movement, good food. That's it. It really is. They're the basic human needs, and then everything else, life can start to feel a lot better, and a lot easier.
Yeah, no, well, I think that's the perfect place to end. Thank you so much. You've been incredible. I think there is a lot to learn from, you make it sound so simple, but I think that's the beauty of what you do. It's really kind of breaking it down and making it accessible, and just this kind of one step at a time, which I think we can all definitely learn a lot from, and learn a lot in terms of kind of how we can implement. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And listen, well done on all, your success. Your journey is amazing. It's inspiring for me. So congratulations on what you've achieved. And I really appreciate you having me as a guest on your lovely podcast.
Thank you.